Winning Plays is brought to you by FanDuel, the exclusive wagering partner of the CLNS Media Network.
All right, new edition of the Winning Plays podcast, back yet again. My name is Brian Robb, joined by the one and only Souichi Terada of MassLive.com. Here today, the Winning Plays pod, which is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. Head on over to FanDuel.com/Boston to get your free signups. And Souichi, we are in, I don't know if this is going to be the most boring first round series in NBA history, but it certainly has a case for it to be, at least this year, based on what was a pretty impressive beatdown in game one. We've had 2 days to kind of do about it now and heading into game two. And so I guess we'll start here. What are we going to get? How many interesting games are we actually going to get in this series at this point, do you feel like?
I think we'll get two. I think games 3 and 4 will be interesting. I think game 2 might be like fake interesting, where it's like kind of like game 1, where it's like a 13-point game with like 6 to go, and they're like, well, they hit a few threes kind of deal. But yeah, B-Rob, I think this might be the most boring series though. Well, it is only game 1, obviously, so who knows, It is the NBA, but like even like Timberwolves Nuggets last night, like I was watching it and I was about to turn it off, but then like that whole like fracas or whatever, the little scuffle happens. And I was like, oh, that's actually kind of interesting. I kind of want to keep watching just for that. And then nothing really happened, but I was like, okay, Celtics-Hawks didn't even have that. So, but yeah, I really think I think Atlanta will have a little bit more juice at home, but I don't think, maybe they still game 4 and it goes 5 games, but I don't, the interesting barometer is very low, which is, I think what everybody expected coming into this one.
Yeah, it's just when Trae Young is your best player in the playoffs. I know this team went to the conference finals a couple years ago, but that against a team like the Celtics that just can hunt him relentlessly, whoever he's guarding, that's a pretty rough place to start. And then when you throw on the other side of the coin that he's just not playing well offensively against the Celtics size period, that is a recipe for a disaster for an Atlanta team that, they have some players, they have some depth. They're going to hit the boards hard like they did in the second half, but you need Trae Young to start playing out of his mind. And I don't know if he has that in him against this team.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously, right, the thing with Trae is that you need to be good offensively, or else, like, why are you on the floor? And I thought it was kind of interesting too, B-Rob. Like, Tatum went at DeJounte Murray a few times. Like, DeJounte had a better game. It's not like he was efficient. Like, he had, 24 and 8, but shot 10 for 25. But, like, Tatum saw DeJounte and was like, all right, like, this is fine too. Like, it doesn't necessarily have to be Trae Young. So, it's just, when your backcourt is just, just kind of getting, beat like that, and, like, the rim protection was pretty spread out with Capella and everything. Like, I think I like leaned over to, and it was something like 14 or 16 points to start the game, were all points in the paint, and they were just getting easy layups, getting to the paint so easily, and it was just kind of like, oh, like this is what it's like 6 minutes into the game, and you could just kind of feel like it was teetering on the edge. So, but yeah, that's the thing about Trae Young. B-Row, we talked about it. Like, he had a funny quote today where he was like, "Celtics fans are nicer than Knicks fans," and I'm like, I don't think that's true. I just think you antagonized yourself in Madison Square Garden a few years ago with like playing well, and, like hitting a game winner game 1, and like, you were like really getting to with the crowd. Like, if you do the same thing with Celtics fans, like they'll show you the hate too, as we saw last year with Kyrie, Draymond, even a little Grayson Allen. So I was like, Trey, like I just don't think it's necessarily Celtics fans are nicer, and I don't think they want to be known as nicer. I just simply think like you can't, you're not beating Marcus Smart and Derek White as consistently just because his defense can shut you down pretty consistently, it seems.
No question. He's gonna play better, at least offensively, because he literally can't play worse. But you're right. Like, there's just, this is as tough as a backcourt to go up against for him, and there are very few holes in this team defensively, and that's really probably one of the bigger questions I had coming into the playoffs. This group is like what level they could get to defensively, and Atlanta, when we have it going, it's a lot of guys that can put up points there, but it seemed like that was a area that was top down was consistent as hell, like whether it was the end of quarter letdowns, whether it was hustling back into plays. Marcus Smart, obviously, which you wrote about, like really stepped his game up, but the level of defensively that the defense can really carry this team, we're kind of at that level at this point, at least against this level of competition.
Yeah, and I guess the one thing I will be curious to see game 2 is if the Hawks can shoot better. They only shot 5 for 29, 17.2%. So, even if they shot 33, I don't think it's necessarily a close game because it was a 30-point game at halftime, but that can put a little bit of pressure, I think. I mean, DeJounte Murray went 0 for 6. Bogdanovich went 2 for 7. Trey went 1 for 5. Like, I think those guys are going to shoot better, especially at home, like I mentioned in games 3 and 4. But like you mentioned, B-Rob, like this defense, I mean, I was so impressed with Rob Williams in game 1, just because like I feel like last year, right? He was just like everywhere. He made an all defensive team, and he earned that. And he got hurt late in the year, but he was available for most of the year. But this, I feel like you could kind of see the switch turn on, obviously for the whole team. But with Rob, like immediately he checks in. Obviously Derek White is starting. The moment Rob checks in, you're like, oh, there he is on an offensive rebound. There he is for another lob. And it was, there were at least like I feel like 2 or 3 lobs in game 1 where you could just see it coming. When like Trae Young was on him, and you're like, okay, well they're gonna throw that up to him. Trae's not really guarding him. So I just think when Rob is unlocked like that, like he was in game 1, like the Celtics defense is whole again, and you're going to see a little bit more of that defense from last year, especially with Marcus, like you mentioned, playing as well. He did in game 1.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of unfair to have Rob Williams just coming off the bench. Like, you just look at the little bigs, and not that they like, I mean, Atlanta has a pair of good bigs with Okongwu and Capella themselves, but when you have a guy like that with the starting level that the Celtics have, period, that's just can really, help break open a game, which it did, like in the first half of game 1 there, just with his energy, with his presence. Like the block to grabbing the ball situation was one of the most ridiculous things I've seen this season, period. And yeah, if he can, again, we haven't seen Rob Williams healthy in the playoffs for like 3+ years now, essentially. Last year he was on one leg for most of that. The year before that, he only lasted 2 games against the Brooklyn Nets.
That crazy,
that crazy after blocking like 10 games. I know that was insane.
Yeah.
So now we see it, and you're like, oh yeah, this helps. This helps the playoffs at this level. This is a pretty big difference here. So I guess the other interesting thing I want to get on your 2 cents on here before we kind of zoom out on the NBA playoffs as a whole here is Sam Hauser over Grant Williams in game 1. Didn't really do anything crazy. Was 0 for 2 from the field, only 11 minutes, +6 overall. Did you like that move? Do you see Joe sticking with that as we get into this, as this series gets deeper here? What's your read on where the rotation's at and Sam Hauser getting the nod over what most people thought would be a Grant Williams spot?
Yeah, I think I like it just because, like, realistically, like you're gonna play Grant against the Sixers and the Bucks. Like he's a good matchup against Embiid. He's a good matchup against Giannis as well as you can be, and he showed that. Obviously, he was very big in the Milwaukee series last year. I like it just because, like, like Grant's not necessarily, I feel like, the best matchup. Like I feel like we talked about this during the game a little bit, but it's just like he doesn't necessarily, like, his 3-point shooting is obviously a plus, but like you can just put Sam out there and like I feel like throughout the season, and you will see this a little bit more, like Sam's going to get, like picked on a little bit defensively, and Trey, I think, tried to do that on at least 1 or 2 possessions. And not to say like it's a good thing. I'm not going to say like Sam Hauser's like this great defender, but like he's got size and he's got, like, he can at least kind of stay in front of his man. So I personally liked it. Just kind of changing it up, and like realistically, I think he just try to keep Grant fresh for the next 2 rounds, just because like he's going to take a beating. Like we're seeing, I'm sure we'll talk about this a little bit more, but like I thought it was pretty important for this, not important, but like it was nice for the Celtics to miss the Heat, just because like that's just going to be a really physically grinding, as we see already for the Bucks, and the Celtics kind of got to miss that. And so keeping a guy like Grant fresh, and I'm sure he'll get some little minutes here and there down the line, especially if the Celtics keep blowing out the Hawks. But for the most part, I liked it. I assume Grant is kind of he's going to be cool with it, like he has been throughout the season. But I just think saving him for the next 2 rounds is probably the move here.
Take a quick break now to hear from our sponsor at Winning Place, FanDuel. Grand slams, no hitters, and double plays are back, and there's no better place to get in on the MLB action than FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook and official partner of Major League Baseball. And new customers in Massachusetts can get in on the action with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet at FanDuel. Just sign up at FanDuel.com/Boston, and you can finally bet on all your favorite sports, from the money line to point spreads to player props and more. The FanDuel app, it's very easy. You can download it right on your phone and you can pull up everything in a quick, whether you want to bet on the games, on props, everything is within your fingertips within a few seconds. It's very easy to use. So bet now on an app that's safe, secure, and it's super easy to use. Don't miss your chance to get $200 in bonus bets, win or lose. Visit FanDuel.com/Boston and make every moment more. FanDuel, the official partner of Major League Baseball. Yeah, especially if he is. I mean, he was talking about that elbow arm situation kind of bothering him, around the All-Star break, and his numbers in the last month just weren't very good, like shooting wise, whatever. So I think it's a good point of view, like just getting, if there is any type of ailment there, like resting that up now as opposed to doing any more damage in terms of before when the team really needs them. That's a pretty good strategic play by Joe. And I just don't mind seeing, like, what do you have in Hauser for the playoffs? I think that's an important thing to try to figure out right now. You're not gonna, you need a bigger sample size than just one game here, but this is probably the perfect opponent to kind of like check that out against. In terms of, like you said, he can kind of hold his own defensively against most of the guys on this team. And this is a team you can beat up on from an offensive standpoint if you just space them out and let Tatum and Brown get runways to the paint. So yeah, I expect, I'd be shocked if Joe really like changes this up until they like lose a game in the series, because like why not at this point?
Yeah, and I just think, just real quick on Sam, it's good for him to get the playoff experience now. Like it was like this year was really kind of, I talked about it with him a little bit, but like it was kind of like a rookie year for him in the sense like he was up with the team the whole time. Like obviously he was a two-way player, his true rookie season. So I think just getting him even 11 minutes of playoff experience, I think is good. And the speed of the game, obviously the physicality of the game is so different, and just to see how he is, maybe a little bit of a confidence boost, that doesn't hurt for a guy who's only 25 years old.
No question. So, all right, we did 10 minutes on the series there. That's enough. That's enough until we get, I mean, hopefully we get something. There's a squabble in game 2. Hopefully there's some kind of action here to spice things up. But unlike the series, the rest of the NBA playoffs is like, wow, like what a weekend, what a start. And a lot of it with some potentially direct bearing on the Celtics. And we do have to start, I mean, you mentioned it briefly, the Bucks Heat situation. The Heat coming out, shooting the absolute lights out to win by double digits in Milwaukee. The bigger story, Giannis goes down with a back injury that everyone is like moaning about with this whole charge block thing. Like, all right, we're not going to go there because like that's just dumb. Dumb to talk about that now. But the Giannis factor here in the series, I guess we'll start here. Do you think he's back for game 2? And what, like, should the Bucks be scared at all in this series now, or was this just a game 1 fluke that they've had trouble before in game 1s and have railroaded teams afterwards in the playoffs?
Yeah, I don't know if the Bucks should be scared, I guess, of the Heat. I think they should be like a little bit worried, especially with like Giannis, but I just don't think the Heat are going to hit 60%. I mean, we saw the same team, like they were struggling against Atlanta and Chicago. And to be fair, Chicago is a very good defense. Yeah, but it's just like like this Hawks defense, as we saw in game 1 against the Celtics, like it's not, and the stats show it, like they're not necessarily the greatest defensive team, and the Heat were struggling with that same team at home and win and get in the playoff tournament. It wasn't like an elimination game like it was against Chicago, but like they also almost blew that against the Bulls as well. So I think, and I'm not going to go as far as to say even like scared. I guess maybe a little bit worried just because of the Giannis thing. I think the Bucks should, and I'm sure they are like much more scared of the fact that like Giannis might be just dealing with this the rest of the way, right? Like I don't know, but like back contusions and a lot of kind of stuff, like that just affects so much of what you do and just your comfort and everything. And especially for a guy like, he's so physical, and I just like I said, B-Rob, like you just don't want those things. And when round 1, game 1 starts to like slowly pile up, right? And so I think that's like the biggest advantage, right? Like no matter what team you're gonna play, it's gonna be super grindy. It's the playoffs. It's gonna be more physical than the regular season. But just the Heat, like like we saw in the East Finals, like they'll beat you up, and and I'm sure like some fans don't like that and everything. But it's just missing them was good. But I think for the Bucks, is just get through this round, try to keep Giannis healthy. And I still think they will get through the round, but. I saw a lot of Celtics fans being like, I don't want Jimmy buckets. I don't want the Heat in the first round. A lot of people are kind of dismissive of that, but like this is the NBA playoffs. Like you never know what happens. Like your star MVP caliber player goes down, and kind of the whole situation for the playoffs kind of changes in that moment. So I think just to put a bow on, I just Not worried. Just a little. Sorry, just a little bit worried, but we'll see. And especially Giannis's back, it seems like it'll be okay. But if that's a lingering thing against the Celtics and against how physical that's going to be against like Grant Williams and Al Horford, like I wouldn't feel necessarily good about that. Even in a month after he plays, a whole first round, hopefully a whole second round, and going from there to the East Finals.
Yeah, it's hard to just see it going away at all in the playoffs. Like if it's bad enough to get you out of the game, then like
Mhm.
that's gonna linger. It's only gonna be like your odds of re-aggravating again are pretty high, I think, like you said, with the type of bidding you get. But for me, this is really fascinating from the Bucks perspective for the now against the Heat. It's like, okay, yeah, you would ideally want to be cautious with Giannis here to like in thinking that
Mhm.
be like, okay, we don't want this to really limit him down the line here. But at the same time, it's like, are the Bucks without Giannis, like, is that a safe bet at this point? Like against the Heat?
Mhm.
Like there's some tough matchups there. And yeah, the Heat aren't gonna shoot like that every night, but Jimmy Butler is probably the best player in that series if Giannis isn't there. So that
Yep.
it'll be interesting to see how they kind of play that heading into game two. Um, because we know, I mean, this is a different Miami team, but this is a Miami team in the past that have had the Bucks number as far as like the main
Mhm.
players involved. So that's
Yeah.
it's a little hairy situation for I think the training staff in terms of how they want to deal with their top guy.
Yeah, and just to add to that, like Drew is not necessarily like I'm a huge Drew Holiday fan in terms of how he plays, great two-way player, but like he's not a guy you want carrying that offense. And like
No,
the Chris Middleton factor, like he hasn't been healthy all year. Like you don't want him being like the number one option against this Heat defense just immediately, round one and everything. Like we're talking about wearing down Giannis, like that could wear down the other two stars too, and then you go from there down the line. So it's just precarious times, kind of interesting times. I wrote about it on my slide. Like the Celtics are the best title odds now of all NBA teams. Like they passed the Bucks, and I think rightfully so right now because of Giannis's injury.
yeah, it's kind of nuts how that can just change in one game and for an injury that may
Mhm.
be minor, but I guess that tells you how close those teams are and what little can sway the betting public at this point. But I'll wrap on this. I mean, at the rest of the weekend here, we've had a lot of entertaining series. Like what was your bigger surprise, or what do you have your eye on the most? Either conference here. I mean, there's
Oh
a lot
man,
going
there's
on
a
both
lot,
ways right now. But
man.
what's tickling your fancy the most here?
Man, rapid fire Warriors Kings. I'm so excited to continue
Yeah,
watching that series.
that's
That
just
was
such a
so
fun
much
series.
fun. That was awesome, especially because like the Kings aren't necessarily the best defensively, obviously, but like they're going to keep running, right? Like that triple overtime game against the Clippers, like this team has a good identity. They're so much fun to watch, and like Sabonis didn't even play great. Like I'm looking forward to that. I think Lakers Grizzlies is going to be really good. Shout out Rui Hachimura, he had a great game. Austin Reeves is fun. I guess the not necessarily the biggest surprise for me, but like Knicks Cavs. I thought the Cavs were kind of like, I don't think it was going to even be like a 4 or 5 game series, but I thought they were gonna, I guess, like kind of wanted to make a statement out here. But then I kind of thought about it, B-Rob, and it's just like there aren't that many guys on this Cleveland roster who have like extended playoff experience. It's pretty much like just Donovan Mitchell, right? So it's just
Pretty
kind of
much.
like I think that's kind of an important factor, right? And I'm not saying like the Knicks are necessarily the most seasoned, but like Jalen Brunson's played, West Finals last year. Like they were good 2 seasons ago in that first round series. I'm sure left a sour taste in their mouth against this Atlanta team, as we talked about. So I kind of lean Cleveland going that way, but I think New York can kind of come out of that. And like, I mean, it's 101 to 97 B round. Like that is another physical series, and like whoever comes out of that, like the Bucks, like I think the idea of the number one seed obviously was the second round would be relatively easier. But like who knows? Who knows? I guess I'm not gonna say like the Cavs or Knicks are as good as going up against the Sixers or anything. But like that's not gonna be a cakewalk either. I'm all these series in the middle, like both conferences. Like I'm so excited to watch them just because I think they're gonna be super fun as they have already have been.
Yeah, you could see 3, 4 series easily going 7 games with the way these
Mhm.
games once have played out. And yeah, I'm with you. I mean, the Knicks just look like the deeper team in game one. Like the Cavs have the
Mhm.
more top end talent, but like they don't have the fifth guy for crunch time, and the Knicks have the more savvy players there. But um, I still can't get over it. We didn't even talk about like the Suns Clippers, like how crazy that
Oh
series is going
man.
to be too. Like this is
Oh
like the
yeah.
Westbrook factor there, but it's going to be
Mhm.
it's good because I think we're going to have some time on our hands here. I think we're going to have an extra week to like watch all these other series and scout all these other teams while the Celtics take care of business in 5, maybe 6 games at the most if we're gonna have to guess here. But yeah, it's gonna be a fun ride. And I mean, the Western Conference like looked wide open going into it, and now with the way these first 2 games have gone this weekend, it can get to, still nothing is settled more than ever, I feel like.
Yeah, and just a quick ad, like I was pretty impressed with the Nuggets just taking care of business. Like it wasn't, the rules aren't great or anything, but like, it's like the Heat just beat the Bucks. I feel like there's a little bit of like this like first 4 factor in the NCAA tournament with like a team, they're coming off a win, kind of feel good. We've seen that a little bit. I think the Grizzlies, when they upset the Warriors in the play-in tournament, they came in and I believe it was Utah, game 1 and stuff like that. So just
Right.
taking care of business at home and like a game that was pretty much not close. Much like the Celtics, I thought that was impressive. Like I feel like Denver, I think they have like the 4th or 5th best title odds behind Phoenix. And even Philly, and it's just kind of like they're kind of a little bit forgotten, but they are the number 1 seed. I love Jokic's game. Like he's a back-to-back MVP for a reason, and I think they're a little bit slept on, but who knows, right? Like the number 1 seed in the West seems like a curse the last few years, so we'll see if that follows into the second round.
Yeah. So, all right. Well, we'll be keeping an eye on that. We'll be keeping an eye on all these series, all postseason long here at the Winning Plays Pod. Make sure you're following Souichi on Twitter at Souichi Terada, Souichi Terada. Check us both out on Mass Live. We'll be cranking things out all series long on these series, as well as what's left with Celtics-Hawks. And rate, review, subscribe, as always. And that's it, guys. Well, game 2, here we come, and then down to Atlanta for a homecoming for Jaylen Brown. We'll wrap up in this. How many points does Jaylen score in Atlanta this weekend? What's the showdown there?
Total?
Yeah, give me total. That'll make it even more interesting.
Total. We'll go 70, like a 40-point game and a 30-point game. I think that might be a little bit high. Yeah, 70's fine.
We'll hope that cuts sealed up by then. But no, he did 29 with breaking it open. So
yeah,
I believe 70.
Yeah, no, I could see it, especially if it kind of gets into the shootout if the Hawks are hitting their threes. Once again, they're a good offense, so they could definitely get hot for at least 1 game. So we'll see.
All right, we'll see if they can put up a fight, make things interesting here in the next week, and we'll be back later this week to break it all down.